So, along with the latest news that Power Book 2 Go Season 2 is going to begin on the 21st of November, they also dropped a lot more detail about what we can expect in terms of the storyline, plot, and where the story is going to go for a few characters. After the first season finished, Tariq was left all alone. He has no family and nobody he can trust. Going into Season 2 as well, he's going to have to make a lot more sacrifices to save what's left of his family, and he's going to need some help of people in power. Monet is going to start doubting Tariq as well. She's going to wonder whether working with him is a good idea because she wants to protect Zeke's basketball career, and Mecca is introduced. He's connected to her in more ways than one, which could lead us to seeing a battle between Mecca and Lorenzo as well. Kane was left in a limbo towards the end of Season 1, but he's going to find himself back in with the Tejada come Season 2. But we're going to be diving deep on all of these topics, including looking at some images from Season 2 which have been released, and discuss what we can expect from these few storylines that we've been given. But of course, if you're new to the channel and you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Power Book 2 and Power Universe related. But let's talk all things Season 2 and how Tariq is going to have to make some real sacrifices, because at the end of Season 1, he said goodbye to his old family and entered a new one with Monet and the Tejada. Tasha is now in witness protection, and I really don't think we're going to see her or even hear from her throughout the whole of Season 2. And this is going to be a big miss for Tariq because she was the go-to when Tariq needed help and advice throughout Season 1. But what is left of Tariq's family? That's Grandma Estelle and Yasmin, and the TV Line article gives us a lot more detail about Tariq's storyline and how he's going to have to make sacrifices, anything to save what's left of his family. Unable to do it alone, he turns to those wielding power and influence, and those are Maclean, Saxe and Rashad Tate as well. But all of those options are going to come with a steep price, so it's going to be back to business with the Tejada. So Tariq is going to have to make some real sacrifices, and we know he's already made one. When it came to Jabari in episode 9 of the first season, he was someone that knew way too much information about him and the Tejada. Jabari was closing in about what happened with the whole bar situation at Stansfield. He was connecting the dots back to the Tejada and was also writing about Tariq's life. So Tariq had no option but to kill Jabari, and someone's going to be prosecuted for the murder. And during the Power Off season, some of you guys will remember, I spoke about this position of power that Tariq potentially has at his disposal. It's the gun that was used to kill both Ramirez and Jabari. So this is something that Tariq can use to potentially even frame someone else, if he hasn't got rid of it, that is. And he really is going to need the help of everybody else who has some sort of influence and power, and that's Maclean, Saxe and Rashad Tate. And you only need the help of people in power and influence when you're in trouble yourself. So I do think we're going to see Tariq in a lot more trouble this season, and him having to make a lot of difficult choices and sacrifices. But the help of Maclean, we all know, doesn't come cheap, and neither does the help of Rashad Tate. He's always asking for favors in return, and he's someone who is very sneaky and snidey himself. And the same could be said about Saxe. Previously, I've spoken about how Tariq needs a Joe Proctor type of lawyer in his life, which is definitely not going to be Tamika because she is straight by the book, and by the sounds of it, it could very well be Maclean or Saxe. But can he trust working with them? Trust is going to be a big thing in Season 2 for Tariq because the people most closest to him who he could trust are either dead or now gone. Tasha is gone, Uncle Tommy is gone, Ghost and Kanan are both dead, and he's someone who has always played his cards really close to his chest and kept secrets from Brayden as well. He didn't tell him the full truth about Riley until he had no choice but to tell him, and I really do feel that he needs someone that he can trust, because we know for a fact he doesn't trust Monet and the Tejada. So he's going to have to put some trust in Brayden and Effie as well, because he's going to be working closely with them together this season. I feel Stansfield is going to be way too hot to do any business around, especially after the death of Bars and now Jabari too. And it brings me back to this conversation that Effie had with Tariq. Effie said that if they team up, they can take over all of the Ivy Leagues together, and this is where the partnership with Effie may come in if they really can't carry out their business at Stansfield. And what a team Effie and Tariq would make, then you add into the mix Brayden as well. But let's talk about Tariq and Kane. This is a relationship where trust is a big issue. Kane doesn't trust Tariq, and I'm sure the feeling is mutual from Tariq's side as well. But Tariq is going to help Kane get back in with the Tejada, and Monet is going to give him another chance, which I'm going to come to in just a moment when I talk about Monet's influence and storyline. But Tariq is going to have to decide what he really wants and what he's willing to sacrifice to get it. And this is where the issue of ethics come into play. What is Tariq willing to really sacrifice to get what he wants? How far is Tariq really willing to go to protect himself and his family, which could be considered ethically and morally bad? Are the sacrifices worth making for the end result? And this is what is meant by, does the end justify the means? How far is Tariq really willing to go to get what he really wants? This is what was being asked in the small teaser, and this is the dilemma that Tariq is going to face throughout this season. But this isn't the only problem that Tariq is going to have. So let's read Monet's part, which reads, the two murders involving Stansfield leads to Monet questioning if Tariq is best for a family, as she seeks to protect her and Zeke's basketball career at all costs. Her kids Drew and Diana start to question her moves as she grows more distracted, especially when Monet goes as far as trusting Kane again, despite his actions against the family. In doing so, Monet finds herself in bed with Mecca A man who wants to show her a new world, potentially at the cost of destroying her old one, forcing Monet to lean on Tariq, who must decide what he really wants and what he's really gonna do to sacrifice to get it. Now this last part is just what we went through with Tariq, so let's look at the first part, which is the 2 murders involving Stansfield, which will lead Monet to questioning whether Tariq is gonna be a good idea to be working with, because we already know that Zeke is Monet's way out of the game. From the very first episode, she showed us that she wanted to protect Zeke at all costs when she told him to go inside and avoid anything with Kane was getting involved in, and throughout different parts of the first season, we saw her protecting Zeke, and this is going to be the same case in season 2, especially at a time where there's 2 murders which can be tied back to Tariq and the Tejadas. But as with everybody who's in the game, there is no leaving. She can protect Zeke's basketball career all she wants. We as the audience know there is never going to be a happy ending, especially for those who play ball. Sean was one example in Power, and some of you guys may have picked this up in Raising Kanan, but D-Wiz was someone else who played ball, both of them ending up dead in the world of Power. And I can definitely see the same happening with Zeke. He's going to be on my death predictions when I do release my death predictions video closer to season 2. But Monet's decisions are also going to have Diana and Drew question her moves, because she's going to become a lot more distracted as she starts to trust Kane again. And this is where we could really see that shift in power, and that power struggle that we've been talking about during the Power Off season. The power struggle between Lorenzo and Monet is going to leave the kids in a bit of a limbo with which parent to go with. Do they stick with Monet or do they side with Lorenzo? And as for Monet trusting Kane again, whether this turns out to be the right decision or wrong decision, we're going to have to wait and see, because I really wouldn't rule out Kane just yet, especially if he's able to keep his emotions in check. Then he's someone that could be very useful in many roles, not just being the muscle to the Tejada organization. But let's look at the next part, which is Monet being in bed with Mecca. And first of all, I want to say, how similar does Mecca look to Lorenzo? When I initially saw this image at a glance, I thought this was Lorenzo for a moment. So I do wonder whether there is a history here. Could he be casted as Lorenzo's brother? Because from his character description, it does tell us that his past would start to be revealed. But let's wait and see. But Monet is going to find herself in bed with Mecca, who has a plan for the Tejadas beyond the family business. He wants to show Monet a new world at a cost of her old one, which will force Monet to leaning on Tariq even more. And Monet being in bed with Mecca is probably going to be a huge reason as to why we see this big divide and power struggle with the Tejadas this season. And not just a power struggle between Monet and Lorenzo, but once he finds out that his wife is cheating on him with Mecca, this is going to contribute to the Tejada family split. And as I mentioned, Drew and Diana will probably have to pick sides. So do they pick the side of Lorenzo or do they pick the side of Monet? Because there are pros and cons of both, which I'm going to discuss during each character breakdown in the lead up to season 2 of Ghost. But with this power struggle and Monet sleeping with Mecca, this will probably result in us seeing Mecca versus Lorenzo towards the end of the season. But this isn't going to be Monet's only threat. We saw the images of her being embroiled in a shootout. Who with, we don't know yet. But one last topic we're going to touch on is Tariq and Lorenzo. Will they meet, and how is that first conversation going to go down? Does he know who Tariq really is? And is he aware of his background, being the son of Ghost and him being the one to kill his own father? And does Lorenzo know, or has he heard of Ghost and Tommy before? I think this is a conversation that we need to see between Tariq and Lorenzo, because I want to see Lorenzo's reaction to Tariq and how this conversation really goes down. So that's the lowdown on the latest plot and storylines from Power Book 2 Ghost Season 2. So drop all your comments down below and let me know what you think about Tariq's sacrifices and how he's going to have to use power and influence of those around him, especially Davis Maclean, Cooper Saxe and Rashad Tate. Monet's troubles, she's going to forgive Kane and trust him once again, which will lead Drew and Diana to question her moves and contribute towards this whole Tejada split and divide. Mecca's going to play a huge role as well, and he's definitely going to stir up a lot of shit. So drop all your thoughts down below on Season 2 of Power Book 2 Ghost, and tomorrow I'm going to be back with my preview and predictions for Episode 9 of Raising Kanan. So if you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Power Book 2, 3 and Power Universe related. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.